Hello! Hello and welcome to my channel. Welcome to a bit of a reading update. This is going to be mostly a Victober reading update, but I also have some things that I finished in September, at the end of September, that I just haven't gotten the chance to talk about yet. So there will be just like a couple of extra books squeezed in at the end. And I also just want to give kind of a bit of a personal update, what's going on, because it is definitely affecting my reading life. So I do want to just share a little bit of like what's going on. I don't really get into too much personal stuff on here, and I don't really have a desire to do that, but you know, without getting too much into things, I do want to give a little bit of an update. So the past 3 to 4 weeks have been very busy for me. I've had a lot of medical appointments related to this pregnancy. Baby, he's doing great overall. There are just a couple of things that I'm being monitored for. I've been having either like 1 or 2 appointments each week at different hospitals, different kinds of things going on, and so it has been kind of just a lot physically. Going to all of these appointments with a 2-year-old is a lot and exhausting, and she's been a trooper, but it has been a lot. And also just like emotionally, mentally draining, because there's only like so much you can know right now, and a lot of it is just kind of waiting to see how things will evolve in the coming weeks and months. And so it's kind of uncertain still where things stand. And so in some ways it's nice to have information, in other ways it's like, well, we don't really know what's going to happen until we get closer to the birth, and possibly even after the birth. So it's kind of a double-edged sword in that way. But overall, like I said, we found out we're having a boy, which is very exciting, and he's doing well. The doctors are, you know, all aware of what's going on, and tend to believe that things will just kind of work themselves out over time in the 3rd trimester, which is definitely what we're hoping for. But either way, there's just like a lot of medical appointments and things going on, which has been affecting my reading, because on those days I just have zero energy to read. Not reading at all on those days. But then kind of on the flip side, I am really enjoying reading when I do have the time, and to have that kind of escape. And especially my Victorian books, I've just been diving into and enjoying so much, which I'm really glad, because I need I need that diversion with all of the other stuff going on. So that's kind of just a brief kind of update without getting too much into details and specifics and things. But I do know that so many of my friends here on BookTube are Christians, so we appreciate so much, you know, prayers and well wishes and good thoughts and things, because it is a lot, and the coming weeks and months will be a lot too, and to just kind of see how things are going to evolve, hopefully in the most positive sense that they could. So anyways, that's that. Like I said, this is mostly going to be Victorian books. I do have some other things, and my Victober reading has been going so well, so good. I've just been reading the most atmospheric, really enjoyable books, and just getting lost in these stories, and I'm so thankful for that, because this is a time when I need that. The first book I want to share with you is actually a book I read in September. I finished it in September, so it does not count for Victober, but it is Victorian, so I'm going to group it with the other Victorian books, and that is The Heir of Redclyffe by Charlotte Mary Yonge. Oh my goodness, I loved this book so much. I think the last time I talked about it, I was maybe halfway through, and the second half I enjoyed even more. It's a little bit more fast-paced. The first half is pretty slow. You're just getting to meet everyone. You're following daily life. There's not a whole lot going on in the first half. I still loved it, because I loved spending time with these characters so much, but the second half definitely picks up in terms of pacing, and there's just more going on. I just love the way Charlotte Mary Yonge writes about the Christian faith and the way that impacts the characters' lives, and it feels very authentic. It doesn't feel preachy. Some people, I think, complain that she feels a little bit preachy, that it feels a little over the top. I really don't get that at all. I think that these are characters who are really striving to lead virtuous lives and are really struggling with very kind of ordinary things. And you see their character progression in such a real way. Like, it's not as though the character is one way and then all of a sudden they have this like light bulb moment, you know, this switch of a light, and they're totally different. You really see this slow unfolding, at times somewhat painful process of growing and developing and becoming a better person, and I just love that so much. I loved also the way the end of this explores the consequences, the unintended consequences of our actions, and kind of this ripple effect that can extend way beyond us and that we had no idea, you know, would happen. And the way you kind of have to come you have to kind of come to understand that the way you live your life is not just the way you live your life and the effects that it has on you, but it has all of these bigger consequences. And I thought that was just so wonderfully done and such an interesting thought to kind of sit with and ponder. I loved the writing in this book. It's beautiful. I love that it makes me think, that I have to pause at times and just kind of digest what's going on. There is some sadness. There's in this book, it's not all happy times, but at the same time, it's just such a redemptive story. It's so beautiful, and I love it so much. I was ready to reread it after I finished, which is always the sign of a good book. And I'm just so excited to read more Charlotte Mary Yonge, because I'm just loving her writing so much, and I'm very excited to be part of the Charlotte Mary Yonge fan club now, because I just love her so much. I have finished one book already for Victober, and that is Wilkie Collins' The Woman in White. I listened to this and read it physically, kind of jumping between the two with whatever I had time for at the moment, and I really enjoyed this. This is such a gripping story. It was my first sensation novel, and I didn't really know too much of what to expect, and I just enjoyed, like I said, this story so much. You get the story told from various points of view, from different characters. Journal entries, you get kind of this multimedia thing too. And I loved how each character's voice felt very unique. I loved Marian Halcombe. She is such a protective character, really looking out for her sister. It's not her biological sister, but they have this very sisterly relationship. And she's just amazing. She's so smart. She's so quick on her feet. And I just really enjoyed the parts of the story that were told from her perspective. A little bit towards the beginning that I felt dragged a little bit more, but then once things started picking up, I really could not put this book down. In fact, I had to download the ebook so that I could read the ebook, because I couldn't like read the physical book for a little while, so that I could read the ebook while I was waiting for my daughter to fall asleep in her room. And yeah, so that's how I technically finished the book. But it was just such a lovely start to Victober, very atmospheric, perfect for this time of year, and I loved everything about this. Also, some really funny lines in here that made me laugh out loud, and I always appreciate when a book can make me laugh, so that was another plus for this one. All right, now we'll get into what I'm currently reading. I have two things on the go. I am a little bit farther in one of them than the other, but enjoying both immensely. The first is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I am up to chapter 18, so I'm nearing the halfway point of this book, and I am enjoying this so much. I knew I would. You know, like when you know that it was just the right book at the wrong time and you just need to come back to it and you will have a totally different reading experience. That was me with Jane Eyre. I knew that, you know, when I would come back to this, I would just fall in love with it. And that is the case. I love Jane. I love her outlook on life, even when things can be really bleak and really challenging. She has just such a beautiful way of looking at things. I love the writing. It's so beautiful. There's some gorgeous descriptions of nature, particularly fall and winter scenes that are so descriptive and so cozy and just fit the story very, very well. Also, the pacing, the plotting in this book is excellent. I've read like 200 and something pages and I don't feel like I've been bored for 1 second. It's just the story has constantly been moving forward. There's no wasted page in this book, and that's just really enjoyable. So I'm loving this so far. Jane is at Thornfield Hall now. She is a governess, and we're starting to see kind of her interactions with Mr. Rochester. She's falling in love with him, even though she kind of knows that he is out of her, he is above her social class. She is just wrestling with these feelings, that she's trying to control it, but at the same time she definitely can't. And yeah, I'm having the best time with this. It's just been such a comforting read right now, and so I'm really, really glad about that. Alright, and then on my Kindle I am reading The Claverings by Anthony Trollope. I'm buddy reading this with my friend Miriam, and I am enjoying this, I will say. I love the writing. The story is compelling. It's very easy to read. I'm just kind of picking it up and find myself able to get really lost in the story and just kind of keep going. But I will say I don't really like our main character, Harry. He is in the middle of this love triangle between a woman who is a rich widow who was his first love, and she kind of rejected him to marry for money. And then this other woman who is the daughter of the man he was kind of in an apprenticeship with, who he was kind of studying under. He was kind of his mentor. And it's his youngest daughter who he is engaged to. She's a really sweet, kind, wonderful girl, wonderful woman. And he is technically engaged, but he is definitely still in love with this first love woman, Julia. And he has just been making some really poor choices and deciding to spend more and more time with Julia, and kind of reigniting all of these old feelings and struggling to decide what he's going to do with his life, because he's kind of told Julia that he loves her and that he wants to be with her, but he's also engaged. And it's just kind of a disaster, honestly, and it kind of stresses me out because I feel like Harry is just constantly making the wrong decision. Every chance he has to kind of try to redeem things and do better, he just throws away. And it is kind of frustrating. At the same time, I do really like some of the other characters. There is a side romance in this that I'm very invested in and I really want to see work out. But unfortunately for Harry, I don't really know how I want things to work out for him. I don't really want him to end up with either woman, because I don't really see things working out well in either case. So I don't know. I'm eager to see kind of how this goes. I think I'm like almost 70% of the way through this, so nearing the end. But I really like Trollope's writing style. Like I said, it's very easy read. It doesn't feel, like a challenging kind of Victorian classic to read. It feels very modern in some ways, and there are some funny moments. There's a lot of, lightheartedness to this, and I am enjoying it overall, even though I don't really like our main character. That's it for what I'm currently reading Victorian-wise. Once I finish up these things, I'm going to be mostly reading some shorter works, some short stories, novellas, things like that, to kind of balance out, I feel like, all of the heavy, big, chunky book reading that I've been doing so far. I do want to make a little bit of progress in Our Mutual Friend, at least kind of start that. But I'm saving that also towards the end of the month, once I finish up Jane Eyre and the Claverings, and just have a little bit of a shorter break in between those kinds of things. Alright, so what I finished up in September. The first one I want to talk about is Autumn by the Sea by Melissa Muir. Or not Melissa Muir, Melissa Tagg. Yes, by Melissa Tagg. And I talked about this already, so I won't go too much into detail, but ultimately this book did not get better for me. By the, towards the end of the book, I just wasn't even really invested in figuring out what happens to this character, if, she finds her lost family or not. And that to me was kind of a big sign that this is not a book that I'm, enjoying that much, that I wasn't even that invested. I just didn't connect to our main character really, or to many of the characters in this story in general, and it's very much a character-driven book. And so, yeah, unfortunately it was a bit of a miss for me. I did enjoy the setting, and there was some really fun small town kind of moments in the story, but overall it just wasn't really for me, and I don't think I'm going to continue on in the series. But if you've read the other ones and you think they get better, let me know, because I would give it a try if you think I would enjoy the other ones more. I read another D.E. Stevenson because I've just been really enjoying her books this year, and that is The Blue Sapphire. This one is a bit different than some of her other stories. I would say it was kind of middle of the road for me. It wasn't exceptional, but it wasn't that bad either. Following Julia, who is engaged to this man who is, not very likable at the start of the book. Obviously there's a love story that unfolds with this other character. I wasn't as invested, I would say, in the love story as I was in just Julia's life. I really enjoyed kind of following her. She moves out of her parents' home, she gets a job, she has this really eccentric, kind of funny landlady. I liked following her job in the hat shop. I really enjoyed that part of the story. And then eventually she goes to Scotland to care for an uncle that she doesn't really know about. And all of that I really liked, but the romance part I liked less. I didn't really see the spark between these two characters. And I would have been happy just following Julia in her everyday life. The romance, I think sometimes in D.E. Stevenson books can come on really quickly, and that was the case for this one. But it was still a really enjoyable read. Finally, I rounded off the month with starting a read-through a reread / read-through of the Little House series. So I read Little House in the Big Woods. I read this as a child, and I don't think I've read it since then. And it was just so comforting, so lovely. I love all of Pa's stories. I love just the descriptions of daily life and the struggles and the joys, and it's such a beautiful book, obviously. And I'm really, really excited to read through the Little House series. My goal is to read through it before the baby comes, which should be beginning of February, but very well could be January. And so, yeah, that's kind of my goal for after reading through some Victorian things, is I'm going to jump back into Little House and just really enjoy these books. I think it's going to be just exactly what I need and very comforting, and I'm really, really looking forward to that. All right, well, I think that is it for my little bit of a reading update. Like I said, I'm just full-on Victober mode, and I think I'm going to possibly read only Victorian literature in October, which would be quite fun. I've never done that before, so I'm pretty excited about that. And let me know what you've been reading. If you've been reading anything wonderful, make sure to tell me. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye.